shiur in Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph. We are up to Tzvi Zayin, the second to last line on page Gimel, the page before page 6. The Mechaber says in Tzvi Zayin, Ovel Shechal Shvi'i Shelo B'Shabbos Erev HaRegel. A person who's in Avelus, he is sitting Shiva, and his last day of Avelus falls out on Shabbos, which is Erev Yontif. So obviously, after his Avelus, he did not have an opportunity to shave before Yontif. Mutter legaleach b'Chol Hamoed, he is allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Says the Ramah, Mi shehemir doso, a person who went off the derech, v'chazar b'tshuva, and then he did tshuva, v'darko legaleach, and the way is in his location, as we'll see, to shave after you do tshuva from Avodah Zarah. Mutter legaleach b'Hamoed, he is also allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. So the Mishabura says in Sivkoton Yudches b'Shabbos Erev HaRegel, since he was unable to shave on that day when his Avelus ended, because it was Shabbos, so therefore he is allowed to shave during Chol Hamoed. Now if the seventh day of Avelus would fall out on the regel itself, so anyway he wouldn't be allowed to shave, because then he would have shloshim that he wouldn't be allowed to shave anyway, midin Avelus. But here the shloshim gets cancelled by the regel, because the shiva ended before, so he is allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Says the Mishabura Vaitus of Koton Yutes, V'darko legaleach. We said in the Ramah, someone who went off the derech and does tshuva, he's allowed to shave if the darko is legaleach. Pirish b'makom shenohagin shebalei tshuva megalchen, in a place where the minhag is that those who do tshuva shave. And why would they have such a minhag? The avodas gilulim dami lemeis ulemetzora shetoin giluach. One who goes ahead and does avodah zarah, that is comparable to a mace and to a metzora that requires shaving, and therefore, if this person is in such a location and needs to shave, he would be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. It says in Mishabura Sekot Chaf, Mutter legaleach b'Hamoed afilu chazar b'tshuva kodem haregel. That means to say, even if he did tshuva before Yontif, v'haya yochol legaleach mikodem, and he could have shaved already before Yontif started, afilu hachi shari b'diavad. Still, it's mutter for him to shave on Chol Hamoed b'diavad. Sharei ein mitzarfen oso l'chol davar shebekdusha ad sheyigaleach. Because l'maisa, they are not going to join this person if he's in such a place where that's the minhag. When they do tshuva, they shave. They will not allow him to join anything that's davar shebekdusha until he shaves. That's grounds to shave on Chol Hamoed. Now that's a chiddush, as note 16 points out. Mashma midvarav, it's mashma from this Mishnah Berurah. Shemuter lehistaper b'Chol Hamoed kishiyesh tzarech mitzvah b'davar. It sounds in the Mishnah Berurah that you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed if there's a tzarech mitzvah. Because here, even though he could have shaved before, we still allow him b'diavad to shave on Chol Hamoed in order to join a davar shebekdusha, to be involved in a mitzvah. V'chein hanoeg la'aniach tefillin b'Chol Hamoed. So too those who have a custom that they wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, v'haya saro megudol, and his hair was very long. Das hagono shom zaman arbach shemuter lo lekatzer esaro b'makom atfillin. He's allowed to cut his hair in the place where the tefillin goes, kidei shelo yichashev chatzitza b'hanachasan, so that his long hair should not be a chatzitza for his tefillin. So therefore, he also could have shaved before Yontif, but because of a dvar mitzvah, we want him to put on tefillin properly and to be in the proper spot. We allow him to shave, to cut his hair on Chol Hamoed in that location. V'chein legabi isha shechelek misara yotzei chutz lemitpachas. So to a woman who her hair is sticking out of her snood, let's say, v'rotze lekatzro, and she wants to shorten it, kedei shelo yira lachutz, she wants to shorten it so her hair shouldn't be seen for tznius reasons. Kasav adas Torah shemuteres legaleach, she's allowed to shave her hair. V'chein hora hagoner v'yashav, again for a dvar mitzvah, one would be allowed to cut their hair to shave on Chol Hamoed. Continues the Mechaber Vayter Sivches, Kol Adam Mutter Litol Safa B'Chol Hamoed. Every person is allowed to cut their mustache on Chol Hamoed. The Ramah writes, Afilu b'farhesya, even in public you can do that. Umutter locho v'lisrog rosh b'Hamoed, you're allowed to rub and wash and comb your hair on Chol Hamoed. Afal pisha meisha seyar, even though it will tear out some hair. Ve'ein bazem mishum giluach, that will not be a problem of shaving on Chol Hamoed. Says the Mishabura Sekadach of Aleph. Litol Safa, we said everyone is allowed to cut their mustache. Bein b'misparayim, bein b'sar. Whether he uses scissors or he uses a razor, that is permissible. V'afilu eino ma'keves ha'achila. Even if that does not prevent his eating, he is still allowed to shave, cut his mustache on Chol Hamoed. Now if you look at note 18, he points out well, let's wait with that for 1 second. Let's first look in the Shara Tzion in Tesvav. So again, the Mishnah Berurah explained that you're allowed to cut your mustache, whether it's with misparayim or with a sar, even if it does not prevent your achila. Says the Sharatzion, that through gidol safa, through growing your mustache long, that will not be menuvel. And therefore, there's no inyan. They didn't want to try to be forceful that a person should cut his mustache before Yontif, because it's not menuveldik to go into Yontif with it, and therefore they didn't have to aser cutting it on Chol Hamoed, so that you should cut it before Yontif. But you have to say that cutting the mustache is considered a beautification, v'tikun haguf, and the fixing up of the guf, v'tzarech hamoed, and the need of the moed to make yourself look better. The ilav hachi, because if it's not some kind of tzarech, yia aser mitam melechas gozes b'chol hamoed. Otherwise, it would be aser al chol hamoed for the melacha of gozes. Magen Avram b'sivkaton yud beis mashma. The Magen Avram is mashma to lo asru ki'im b'giluach harosh. He's mashma that they only asr on Chol Hamoed shaving the hair on the head. Aval b'shar eivarim muter l'saper, but other parts of the body, like the mustache, you are allowed to cut on Chol Hamoed. V'tzarech iyan ktsas. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'tzarech iyan ktsas on this Magen Avram. But if you look at note number 18, he points out a very interesting chilek that over here by Chol Hamoed we said you can cut your mustache even if it is not preventing you from eating normally. However, when it comes to the 3 weeks, those who don't shave or get haircuts for all 3 weeks like the Ramah, or the Svarim Mufal of the Mechaber who don't cut their hair doing Shvua Shechalbo, we're going to see later on in the halachas of Tisha B'Av, we only have a heter to cut the mustache there if it's preventing your achila. So why over here by Chol Hamoed, even if it's not preventing your achila, you may cut your mustache, but when it comes to the 3 weeks, you're allowed to cut your mustache only if it prevents your achila. The chiluk is explained by the Machzas HaShekel. Shekevan shebi mei ben ha-mitzarim. Since in the days of the 3 weeks, ne'asar giluach b'chol haguf, it's usher to cut your hair on your entire body. L'chein lo hutra asara seir hasofa elohim kei makev es-ha'achila. Since there the issue was made, giluach, and cutting hair on the whole body, so we need a reason to be matir, the cutting the hair of the mustache, and therefore it has to be that's preventing your achila. But over here, when it comes to Chol Hamoed, especially Lefi the Magen Avram that we just saw quoted in the Sharatzion, that they only answered the hair on your head, so they never answered the mustache, so it doesn't have to prevent your achila. You're allowed to cut your mustache no matter what. Back to the Mishnah Berurah in the middle of Sivkoton Chav Aleph, the second line. Umishi yeshlo shchin berosho. One who has some kind of boils on his head. Muter legaleach haser afilu besari, is allowed to cut his hair, shave his hair even with a razor. And that is for refuah purposes. V'ayim b'bir halacha umuter lahakiz dam shekorin kepzetzin. You're allowed to make his dam. You're allowed to do bloodletting. And Sivkoton Chav Beis says giluach. Again, this is going on the Ramah that says that rubbing your hair or combing your hair would not be a problem, even if hair comes out. That's not a problem of giluach. V'chein kol rechitza mutter. So to any kind of rechitza is mutter. You don't have to worry about any kind of hairs coming out. That's not a problem of giluach. That concludes Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph, and now let's begin Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Beis on page number 6. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Mutter litol tziparnayim. One is allowed to cut his nails, bein the yad, bein the regel, whether it's his fingernails or his toenails, afilu b'misparayim, even with an instrument, even with scissors. So the Mechaber holds that one is allowed to cut all his nails on Chol Hamoed, even with scissors. The Bir Halacha writes, bein the yad, bein the regel. Rotzalomer means to say afilu the regel. The chiddush is you're even allowed to cut your toenails. The lo mois im yizgadel. It's not disgusting if your toenails grow long because people are not seeing it anyway. Gam kein mutter. The Mechaber is going to tell us even your toenails, where it's not going to be any kind of mius, if you don't cut it, even that you are allowed to cut on Chol Hamoed. That is the sheet of the Mechaber, that everything goes when it comes to nails. However, the Ramah writes, Aval yesh machmirim va'osrin. There are those who are machmir and they aser cutting nails. V'chein hu aminog lahachmir shelo litlon bein misakin bein misparayim. And says the Ramah, that is the minog, to be machmir, not to cut nails, whether it's with a knife or with scissors. Im lo litzarech mitzvahs tefillah shenotlan kedarka b'chol. Unless an isha has to go to the mikvah and it's a tzarech of the tefillah, so then she can cut her nails on Chol Hamoed the same way that she does during the regular week. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Afilu b'misparayim, this is going on the sheet of the Mechaber, which is lenient that you are allowed to cut all your nails on Chol Hamoed, even with scissors. The kol shekain b'sakin o biyad u b'shinav de mutter. Certainly, if you don't do it in the regular way, whether you use a knife, or you are using your other hand, or your hands, or you're using your teeth, everything goes. The Ramah told us, Yesh machmirim, there are those who are machmir, and they ask for cutting nails on Chol Hamoed. It says in Mishabura. The sovereign, they hold the bazeh shayach gamkein hatam. They hold that it's also shayach by nails. The reason kedei shelo yikanes lamoy kashum menuvel, that a person should not go into yantav when he's menuvel. So the same way we want you to cut your hair, we want you to shave, we also want you to cut your nails, and therefore they did ask her on Chol Hamoed to make sure that you would do it before yantav. V'yachduchem be'erev haregel, and therefore they wanted to make sure that you would cut your nails on erev yantav. V'chol hani de mutarim legaleach haniskarim le'el b'simin tov kuf lamed aleph. The whole list that we discussed yesterday of all the people that were ba'ones, they couldn't cut their hair before yantif. They're allowed to cut their hair on Chol Hamoed. Mutarin litol tziparnayim. They are also allowed to cut their nails on Chol Hamoed. Says the Sha'ar Tzion and Os Beis, asking the Magen Avram, umashe hisig haberhetev, and that which the berhetev notes on this, tahahaya yachol litol b'chol makom shehu. What's the big deal? He could have cut his nails wherever he was. Why do we say those cases are an ones? Let him cut his nails before yantif. Ze'eno, that's not correct. If you remember, we pointed out that if the person was in jail, even if he's in a jail from Jews, and they would have allowed him to shave before yantif, he's also allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. We pointed out yesterday in the Mishabura, they have to say the pshat is they were lenient because it was a time of tsar, and his mind is not on cutting his hair. So his mind is also not on cutting his nails. The same thing would apply over here, and therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, it's not correct what the Berhetev is saying, that we wouldn't allow the cutting of nails in all these cases because you could have done it before. It's not true, because if you were in a case where it would be b'tzar, your mind is not on it, and it would be grounds, like by shaving, that you could also cut your nails on Chol Hamoed. Continues the Mishabura Vayter in the middle of Sivkot and Beis. V'im netalon me erev Yom Tov. Here's a very important halacha. If one did in fact cut his nails on erev Yantif, muter litlon b'chol hamoed, then you are, yes, allowed to cut your nails on Chol Hamoed again. As opposed to what we said by shaving, even if you got a haircut or shaved on erev Yantif, you cannot shave or get a haircut on Chol Hamoed. When it comes to nails, you can. Dehayesh matirin la'olam keshegilach me'erev Yom Tov. Because there are those who hold that even when it comes to shaving, if you shave the erev Yantiv, you are, yes, allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. V'af de'anan lo kaimelon kein kanal. Even though it's true, we don't hold that way. Like we learned in Siman Tov Kuv Lamed Aleph Siv Beis, in the last Siman we learned that we hold that you cannot shave on Chol Hamoed even if you shave the erev Yantiv. But l'maisa, there are shittas that hold that you can. So when it comes l'maisa to cutting nails, the yesh belav hachi harbe deos lahakil. Anyway, as we saw the sheet of the Mechaber and others that allow you to cut nails 100% on Chol Hamoed, so ein lahachmir. So even though when it came to shaving, we said if you shave before Yantav, you're not allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. But when it comes to nails, you are allowed to cut your nails on Chol Hamoed if you cut your nails on Erev Yantav. And the reason is because some even allow shaving. If you shave on Erev Yantav to shave on Chol Hamoed, we hold not that way. But when it comes to cutting nails, there's a sheet of the Mechaber that says l'chatchila you can cut your nails on Chol Hamoed. So certainly if you did it before Yantav, you can then do it again on Chol Hamoed. Let's say a person's nails didn't need cutting when it was Erev Yantav. So if you look at note number 2, he points out someone who jumped the gun and a few days before Yantav he already cut his nails. When it came to Erev Yantav he had nothing to cut. His nails were very short. Then he looks at his nails on Chol Hamoed and they grew and he sees he wants to cut them. So Kasav Aruch HaShulchan shemuter lo litlam b'Chol Hamoed. Says Aruch HaShulchan, even though he did not cut them on Erev Yantav, he cut them a few days before, but they didn't need cutting on Erev Yantav, he can also cut them again on Chol Hamoed. Shekevan shebe'erev Yom Tov lo hayot tzarich litlan. Since on Erev Yantav he had no need to cut them. Lo nemra bazeh ha'gzeira shelo yikanes lamoy geshu menuvel. It is not shaykh over here the gzeira that maybe he'll go into Yantav menuvel because his nails were cut. He didn't cut them today, but he cut them 3 days ago. He therefore is good to go. Let's look at note number 1. The odom hasovel mitziporen biraglo hamafrialo linolas nalo. Let's call this an ingrown toenail. He has a nail that is bothering him on his foot and he can't put on his shoe. It's very painful. So Rav Nissen Karel, it says, Sheyesh lahakel lachotcha. You can be lenient that he can cut this toenail on Chol Hamoed. Kevan shagzeira shelolitol tziparnayim b'moed, because the whole gzeira of not cutting nails on Chol Hamoed is kedei shelo yikanes b'novel hamoed. It's because you shouldn't go in disgusting to Yontif. So it's lo shayeches elo kishenotol tziparnav l'saknon. That only applies if you're cutting your nails for aesthetic reasons, so you should look nice. V'lo kishenotol rak tziparan achas mishum tzarel sheyesh, not because you're cutting one nail because you're in pain. That whole svara wouldn't apply. And you can throw into the mix the shita of the mechaber also, who says anyway cutting your nails is mutter. So we hold it's aser. But Lamai said if any other tzad to be matir, so we are lenient as well, and therefore an ingrown toenail or any toenail that is causing pain when you put your shoes on, you are allowed to cut that nail on Chol Hamoed. Continues the Mishnah Berurah weiter, Sefkatan Gimel. So the Ramah said there are those who are machmir and they aser. And we said that is the minhag to be machmir, not to cut nails on Chol Hamoed, bein besakin, bein b'misparayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, alva biyadav u b'shinav mutter, but with your hands to rip off your nails, or with your teeth to bite your nails, that is mutter. So there's always an eitzah, even though we have a lot of leniencies that we saw if you did it before, if you're in pain, but it's not a regular case. You forgot to cut your nails, you want to cut them on Chol Hamoed, it's 100% mutter if you bite them or if you pick them off with your hands. Hanotel tziparna b'shina, one who bites his fingernails, although his parents always told him to stop, ein bahem mishum miyas, the Gemara says that's not called a miyastic thing. That's not called miyas. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter, Sefkatan Dalet shenotlon kedarko b'chol. We said an isha that has to go to the mikveh, so she has a mitzvah of tefillah, she can cut the nails like she does during the week. Ratzalom means to say afilu ayidei atzman, she can even cut the nails by herself. Ve'ein tzarech al yidei nochris. We don't need a non-Jew to be cutting her nails for her. K'mo le'inyan isha she'avela, like we do say by a woman who is in avelus. Mi'achar sheyesh matirim b'chol inyan, once again, because there are those who are matir always. Now there is a note over here that I want to point out. That's note number 4. In the back of the sefer on page 2, we're just going to read 2 lines. You don't have to turn there. But he does write an interesting, important halacha. V'isha shechal leil tfilasa b'motzei yom tov ha'acharon. A woman who's going to be going to the mikvah on Motzei Yantif. So now she either has to wait till after Yantif, close to the mikvah, to cut her nails, or she can cut her nails on Chol Hamoed. Shlomo Zalman says, "Shelo tigzos tziparnea b'Chol Hamoed ela b'Motzei Yantif." She should not, even though she does some preparation before Yantif, she should not cut her nails on Chol Hamoed. For the mikvah on Motzei Yantif, she should wait to cut her nails till after Yantif is over. Says the Mechaber weiter Sef Beis, Kol refuah mutter b'Chol Hamoed. Anything for refuah purposes is mutter on Chol Hamoed. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sefkatan Hey. Hainu shemutter lasos afilu malacha gemura letzarach refuah. One is allowed to do even total malacha for refuah purposes. Va'afilu lechola she'en bo sakana, even for a chola that it's not in any kind of sakana. Habiyontav, however, when it comes to regular yontif, aser afilu lishtos davar shum mishum refuah. It's aser to drink something, even if it's just a drink for refuah purposes. It is aser. Gezeira atu shchikas hamamonim, like we say by Shabbos, it's a gezeira. If you take medicine, you may come to grind up spices to make medicine, which is daraisa. So you can't take medicine or any refuah on yontif, but on Chol Hamoed everything is mutter, even a malacha gemura. If you look at note number 5 in the back of the sefer, what about going to the dentist on Chol Hamoed? So note number 5, this is probably kedai to turn to if you want, because we're ending with this, and that is on page 2 in the back. Note number 5 on the top of the page. V'laleches letipul eitzel rofei shinayim b'Chol Hamoed. To go for a visit to the dentist on Chol Hamoed, Rav Moshe Feinstein writes in Igros Moshe, Shem yeshlo afilu tsar katan b'shinav. If you have even the smallest toothache, mutter letapel behem b'Chol Hamoed, you are allowed to take care of it on Chol Hamoed. Aval tipulim mishamrim aser. But if you're going for a well visit, for a checkup, for a cleaning, that's aser. Elim kain olu lihigarim nezek im lo yitapel b'Chol Hamoed. Unless for some reason that can cause damage if you don't do it on Chol Hamoed, which is very unlikely. Do it the day before, the day afterwards. Very unlikely you have to do it on Chol Hamoed. V'chein das hashaz and shuvas ber Moshe. Meidach, on the other hand, das agon of Yoshev. Shemuter l'tapel b'shinayim gam im ein lo ko'ev v'tzar ach yishur shinayim aser. Rav Yoshev is more lenient than Rav Moshe. He says that you can be dealing with your teeth even if you have no pain. You are allowed to go to a dentist on Chol Hamoed, but the orthodontist you can't go to. He says l'yishur shinayim, to straighten out your teeth, that would be aser. We will stop here. Emir Hashem. Next time we'll continue and we will begin Siman Tov Kuv Lamed Gimel.